Good morning, students. You are most welcome to my YouTube channel for BA classes English Literature. Today, we are going to take up literary terms. Under literary terms, we will discuss especially dramatic monologue, Inscape, and Instress, prescribed for BA second year. First of all, let's take up dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue is half poem and half drama, in which a single fictional or historical character other than the poet speaks to a silent audience constituting one or more persons. This form of poetry was popularized and perfected by Victorian poet Robert Browning. Dear students, in simple terms, we can say dramatic monologue is a semi drama and semi poem in which a single character, that is not the poet, who addresses or speaks to a silent audience, a silent listener, that may be a single person or more than one. And Robert Browning is considered to be the champion of dramatic monologue. He is the master of this device, dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue is closely associated with Robert Browning. Robert Browning has written several world renowned dramatic monologues, such as My Last Duchess, Fra Lippo, Andrea del Sarto, Rabbi Ben Ezra, etc. Dramatic monologue has a few characteristic features. Let's discuss them. First, a single person, but that is not the poet, speaks the words presented in the entire poem in a specific situation. Second, the protagonist addresses and interacts with one or more persons, and the reader is aware of the presence of the audience and their reactions. Third, the monologue is so organized that its focus is on the temperament and character that the dramatic speaker unintentionally reveals in the course of what he says. In other words, the dramatic monologue aims at the psychoanalysis of the protagonist. Actually, through dramatic monologues, the poet tries to analyze the psyche of the speaker, what is going on in the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind of the speaker, that is put forth, that is dissected, or that is closely analyzed through these words of poetry. Such poems reveal the mind of the character, whose personality is revealed. Revealed means expressed. Unwittingly means unknowingly. This distinguishes a dramatic monologue from a lyric, while the implied presence of a listener distinguishes it from a soliloquy. In soliloquy, we have explicit means direct presence of the audience, but in dramatic monologue we have implied presence. Implied means hidden presence, that is assumed. The presence of the audience or listener is assumed in dramatic monologue. It differs from aside since it is a dramatic monologue. The other characters also hear what is uttered by the speaker. But in aside, the other characters are not able to hear what the speaker speaks. But in dramatic monologue, other characters are able to hear what the character speaks. The examples of this form in English literature are Tennyson's Ulysses, and Browning's we have discussed already. My Last Duchess, Fra Lippo Andrea del Sarto, Rabbi Ben Ezra, and T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock that we studied earlier. So this is dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue is closely associated with Robert Browning, and it is a half poem and a half drama in which there is a single fictional or historical character that is not the poet but a character who reveals his psyche, who speaks, who addresses the silent audience, the implied audience, that may be a single person or more than one person. This is a kind of psychoanalysis of the protagonist. Protagonist means the leading character, the chief character of the poem. So, through this poem, the poet tries to analyze the psyche, analyze the mind of the chief character. Now, let's take up the next term, that is inscape. Inscape. Inscape and instress, they are complementary terms to each other, or they are inseparably associated with each other. And these terms are coined or created or generated by, introduced by G.M. Hopkins. Inscape basically, in simple terms, we can say inscape can be assumed or can be considered the body, and instress as the soul of the body. So, dear students, I would like to simplify the terms. Inscape means we can assume it as human body. Human body is the inscape, and human soul is the instress. So, human soul guides the human body, that what to be done, what act to be performed, that is guided by our psyche, by our soul, and body performs the acts, performs the actions as per the directions, as per the uh, commands of our soul. So, instress and inscape and instress. Inscape is the body, and instress is the soul. But in larger terms, if we talk about inscape and instress, then inscape is all the natural objects which have their own individuality or individual identity. And instress is the energy, the power, the charismatic power which keeps the object intact, which keeps the object alive. That is instress. Means the energy of the object, the power of the object, the the content of the object is the instress. In other simple terms, we can talk that Inscape is the hardware and Instress is the software. Hardware are the objects of the nature, and software is the soul of the objects. And by the virtue of Instress, the things stand up, they remain intact. Now let's discuss Inscape in technical language. Inscape, that is the key to Hopkins poetry, means the conception of an aesthetic discovery of great importance. Inscape is the distinctive pattern or a species of individually distinctive beauty perceived in nature by the artist. A species of individually distinctive beauty perceived in nature by the artist. Basically, Inscape to Hopkins meant design or pattern. Design or pattern, he writes, as air or melody is what strikes me most of all in music and design in painting. So, design pattern, or what I am in the habit of calling Inscape, is what I above all aim at in poetry. The countless forms of nature are all unique. The numberless forms, the numberless objects of nature are all unique. They are matchless. They are separately inscaped by God, separately created by God. So the creations are the inscapes of God. Each object in creation and the mind of each man too has its own inscape, which gives it its own identity. So Inscape gives the identity to every human being and to every object of nature. As each man's mind has its own inscape, man inscape the world separately according to their individual mood of awareness. Hopkins constantly endeavored to find patterns and perspectives in nature. In his journal, he is often found wrestling with words to describe exactly his inscapes of nature. Inscape, according to Hopkins, is the soul of art. Poetry, too, Hopkins is a pattern. Poetry, to Hopkins, is a pattern. Inscape is the shape. The shape or inscape of speech sound is more important for him than the logical content. Hopkins' frequent use of compound adjectives such as dapple, dawn, drawn, and the devices of the inversion of word order, omission of relative pronouns, etc., are the ways through which he captures the inscape of the objects he depicts in his poems. Now let's take up Instress. Instress is the complementary word of Inscape. In stress, Jim Hopkins was trained to understand the science of aspects. As a result, he developed theories of natural essence and expressiveness, and of meter, and coined other terms, inscape, instress, and sprung rhythm, to define them. The term instress is closely associated with inscape. Inscape refers to the individual or essential quality of the thing, or what Hopkins calls individually distinctive beauty of style. In Inscape, if Inscape is the body, Instress is the soul, which makes the body act the way it wishes. That is what we discussed earlier at the very outset. Hopkins uses pitch to express Duns Scott's concept. So now, always too scrupulous and self critical, Hopkins never reconciled writing poetry and serving God. His poetry, as a consequence, is a means to express the thisness of an object, that is inscape, and the force that sustains it, that is in stress. So, in simple terms, we can say that, dear students, inscape is the object of nature, and in stress is the energy and the force that keeps it intact of anything. And every object of nature that have inscape and in stress. The poem The Wreck of the Dutchland, his sonnets such as The Windhover, Pied Beauty, Spring, Carrion Comfort, No Worst, There Is None, etc. They beautifully bring out Hopkins' concept of in stress. So, dears, today we discussed dramatic monologue, Inscape, and Instress. In broader terms, roughly, you will have to keep in your mind dramatic monologue is very much closely associated with Robert Browning, whereas Inscape and Instress are the inseparable terms. They are closely associated with G.M. Hopkins. That's all for today and have a nice day. Thank you for listening me.